Back.
Yeah,
That's
back
actually
from
good.
Sweet Oblivion.
Yeah, nearly lost you then. Anyway, you're a week. Try the veil. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Das Audiophiles. My name's John. His name is Andy. Ah, the king is dead, and long live the people who aim above. All the simple stuff never understood, like right from bad and wrong from good, deny that you were ever tempted by the lie that there's an answer in the sky. More on that later. But first, Andy has a track for me to listen to. Andy, what do you got?
I have got a band called Screaming Trees. Are you familiar with Screaming Trees?
Yes.
You are.
Not a hugely familiar. I'll tell you. So very quickly, when Mark Lanigan died, is when we were both on I think we not that long started doing stuff on Into the Music. And Greg messaged me and said, Mark Lanigan's dead. Fancy doing some reactions? And literally, I had an hour's notice, and he sent me the link, bang bang, and and then we went for it. Um, and it was like real sort of, oh my god. And funny enough, after doing the reaction, I realised I had the album that we were doing the songs from, Bubblegum, but I wasn't like overly familiar with them. And so I really wanted to check out Screaming Trees. So I've got and listened to Dust, which I actually really like. And I know I'm supposed to check out Sweet Oblivion, but for some reason never got round to it. And there you go. That's my knowledge of Screaming Trees.
Okay. Well, I have got perhaps their most popular song
Is it
ever, I
from
think.
Sweet Oblivion?
Yes, I believe it is. Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course it is.
So, I'm going to give you the track Nearly Lost You, which is, like I said, quite popular. So,
Okay.
I guess this is as good as any introduction to his work with Screaming Trees as you're going to get off their most popular album. So, yeah, this is, I guess, a bit serendipitous, although put off by about a year or so, perhaps. But
At least probably two, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, go off, give this a listen, and come back and let me know what you think of it, man.
Hello, early 90s. Yeah, this is sounding good.
Calling me back to myself, like the one you knew before. Calling me back once again. I nearly lost you there, and it's taken us somewhere. I nearly lost you there. Let's try to sleep now. Drag me far enough to know.
All right. Yeah, this sounds good. This sounds really good. Struck by a number of things. This almost sounds like an 80s college rock song that's been revamped, been put through a 90s filter to sound that way. But if you toned it down, and it could be an 80s sort of college rock song easily. Um, I like the sort of little touches, like the backing vocals going as he was singing those couple of lines, just built that bit up. I love the tone of that high electric guitar, that sort of doodly doo doo sort of sound, really really nice. The drumming, particularly that sort of intro, pounding in, letting you know you're in for a good time. And his voice, the Screaming Trees that I've heard, his voice is a lot softer, and it just really struck me from that and this. Nothing wrong with his voice, but my God, he really worked on it for Bubblegum. Bloody hell, difference is quite remarkable. Yeah, cool stuff so far.
I'm blind every mile that you burn. There's a rider that's falling in. It's clear there's no time to return. I nearly lost you there. And it's taken us somewhere. I nearly lost you there. Let's try to see now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I really like that. We're just gonna have to go back a touch. Such a nice sound to that guitar. And then when it breaks down, the drums, and you hear the bass growling away like a tethered junkyard dog. Sounded good. Did you hear the distant line calling me back to myself? Like the one you knew before, calling me back once again. I nearly lost you there. And it's taken us somewhere. I nearly lost you there. Well, let's try to sing now. I nearly lost you there. I nearly lost you. I nearly lost you there. I nearly lost you there. I nearly lost you there. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Nearly lost you there. Yeah, I was just, I finally noticed, I think, that I was wondering, is there an organ I can hear sort of filling out the holes like musical polyfiller in the chorus, and of course it ends with that sort of keyboardy organ chord. So yeah, obviously it was there. Yeah, this is really good. I enjoyed it a lot. It's real fun, particularly that period. It sounds quintessentially to my ears really American, early 90s. There's a touch of traditional, not traditional, but sort of 80s college rock sound to it, and then something newer as well, which makes it quite, it satisfies both camps that I like both of those sounds. So yeah, this is really decent, really good. All right, let's get back and chow down with Andy. Well, I'm back.
Yeah, back
Actually
from
did.
sweet oblivion.
Yeah, nearly lost you then. Anyway, you're a week. Try the veil. Yeah, this was really interesting for a number of reasons, actually. I think I stopped the reaction after about 10 seconds, welcome to the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really, but the more I listened to it, the less I thought that actually. So it starts off this crashing guitar, pounding drums that welcome you into the song. And then there's the main mean potatoes riff from a guitar, which could really easily be, and I thought this a number of times and I mentioned it in reaction, could easily be like an 80s college rock song. It's kind of been put through a 90s filter, but it could easily be from that. And the further into the song I got, the more it felt it had kinship with that era and even a touch of the 60s. But it's a more muscular version of that sort of jangly guitar. If you strip some of the things out of it, you would get like a mid-late 80s college rock. I thought it was really interesting. So over the top of this comes this wonderful tone from this higher guitar that keeps embellishing phrases here and there. And I don't know what the effect is on it. Is it a wah? I don't know what it is, but it's that wah wah. Really, really nice. And as he's going through the verse and coming to the chorus, there's certain, particularly in the chorus as well, there's certain parts and phrases which are elongated a touch. And it almost gives the impression seemingly of slowing down. And you pair that with these really beautiful harmonies, and it all gives a sense of almost cushioning to this energetic pace. Again, found that really quite interesting. It's almost like this sort of diverse approaches at the same time. The chorus is really bright and catchy, and it's quite airy as well, actually, which you don't really associate with early 90s, guitar based songs. And at the end of the chorus is another very small little bout of that delicious guitar again. I have to say at this point, the drumming is absolutely superb. He's not, he's not doing all this, but it's really driving it along, and it's really got this, energy behind it. They go through another verse. I'm really loving it, and they almost come to almost a halt. It's like that sort of, when you're wobbling on the edge of a building or whatever, and then into the chorus, so it doesn't stop, but it just almost does, and then goes in again, which I really liked. Another chorus, it's really, I'd really like the chorus as well. Then there comes quite a shortish solo from said high tone guitar, followed by a very short burst of almost this more traditional guitar riff, and then it goes into the breakdown, the drums, and the bass. I think I said in reaction, the bass was growling like a tethered junkyard dog. Not that I've met many, but
Yeah.
That's
how you figure they sound, right?
Yeah. Real crowd pleasing stuff, and this crowd of one was very pleased with it. I did bring it back and listen to that bit again. It was a highlight for me. I have to say at this point, his voice, as I know from previous listening, is great. It has that touch of soul to it almost.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But it really struck me, because this is obviously much earlier than the stuff I listened to, because I believe Dust was their last album. that they did, and I know I'm familiar with Bubblegum as well. And even more so, the difference in his voice between this and Bubblegum is quite remarkable. The development, he's obviously, I don't know what he's done, worked on his voice or whatever, but they're both really good, don't get me wrong, but there's such a difference between Bubblegum and this. It's huge.
Yeah.
And that's really impressive as well. And they're both, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's crap here and he's better there, but there is a difference to his, it's a bit sort of Tom Waits difference, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. But I think what's interesting is that you're keying in on something right now that he himself has come out and said in interviews in the past, where like his time with Screaming Trees was really where he found and developed his vocal talents. And so, like, if it wasn't for his time in Screaming Trees, he's said he wouldn't be able to be where he would later evolve to as a vocalist. And you're right, his voice does drip with soul in it, when you hear it. You're like, wow, man, that's really incredible, especially for the early 90s sound.
Yeah. And that guitar bass sound as well. You just didn't really get it with singers like that.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's what struck me the most about this song. We kind of surf out the rest of the song. And I was about to say, as it's just finishing, I was about to say, oh, I wondered that perhaps I could hear like a bit of organ, particularly in the chorus, like polyfill filling in the gaps. And of course we end the final chords of an organ, which kind of answers the question for me, dumbass, which is quite funny. In some ways, this song's got like an older core to it. It's got a 90s filter on it, but it sounds like an older kind of song. But the delivery and the approach is very, early 90s. And I love both. So, I mean, it satisfied me and my musical taste twice almost. I thought this was really, really good. And I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. I thought you would. And I'm surprised that I made it in time for you to have not heard this song. I'm surprised you hadn't heard it before in general.
Screaming Trees isn't big in this country at all.
Yeah. That's something else I know.
Really.
Another reason why I wanted to bring them to the table, because we often talk about the early 90s American rock movement and grunge and all that stuff. And those in the know over here, at the very least, know that Lanigan's nearly as important to grunge music as Kurt Cobain. Even though their sound isn't as straightforward grunge as a Nirvana or a Soundgarden or some of the other Seattle-based bands. But they're still wildly influential and very important to that movement and that time in American rock music. So I've talked about, Nirvana. It seems like from what I've talked with English folks before, the inference is that the big four that came out of Seattle are really who get a lot of the spotlight as it relates to grunge. But there's so many other bands and folks that deserve attention as well. So I thought Screaming Trees is a perfect band that kind of fits that mold, and I'd love to bring them to the channel. So I'm glad you gave it a listen, man.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, back in the day then as well, it was hard to get export stuff. So unless the record company, they let you have what they wanted you to have from America. And so, I mean, I remember in the 80s, getting hold of REM albums was ridiculously hard. At the time,
pre-internet world, right? So there's a lot of gatekeeping there.
Yeah.
So, the Screaming Trees, American rock band formed in Ellensburg, Washington in 1984 by vocalist Mark Lanigan, guitarist Gary Lee Conner, bassist Van Conner, and drummer Mark Pickerel. Pickerel was later replaced by Barrett Martin in 1991. They became known as one of the pioneers of grunge, as I said earlier, along with Melvins, Mudhoney, U-Men, Skin Yard, Soundgarden, Green River, and Malfunction, among others, obviously. Although widely associated with grunge, the band's sound incorporated hard rock and psychedelic elements, which I think, coupled with his soulful voice that he was kind of coming into, is what gives you or connotes an earlier rock sound, despite the 90s filter that you had mentioned, right? So after releasing a string of EPs and albums in the 80s on independent labels, Screaming Trees signed with Epic Records in 1990, and they released their major label debut album in 1991, and that was called Uncle Anesthesia, which spawned their first chart single, Bed of Roses. After Martin replaced Pickrell on drums, Screaming Trees released their most successful album in 1992, Sweet Oblivion. Dollar Bill became a minor radio hit, but the lead single, Nearly Lost You, vastly increased the band's popularity as it peaked at number 5 on the modern rock chart track charts, number 12 on the mainstream rock tracks chart, number 50 on the UK singles chart, and number 96 on the ARIA chart, which I believe is Australia. It was the band's first single to chart outside of the US. And after extended hiatus and various recording sessions, the band's follow-up album was eventually released in 96, entitled Dust, which you alluded to earlier. Although the lead single, All I Know, peaked at number 9 on both the modern rock tracks and the mainstream rock track charts, the album did not match its predecessor's success. And after difficulties in recording another album, the band announced their official breakup in the year 2000. Their aborted album, excuse me, from the late 90s was later released in 2011 as Last Words, the final recordings. As we mentioned earlier, Lanigan died at age 57 on February 22nd, 22, and Van Conner died at age 55 on January 17th of this past 2023. So yeah, it's tragic that we lost both of them and so closely. There's an interesting anecdote behind a live performance of this song that I kind of wanted to shed light on because it's pretty funny, and I almost gave you the live performance, but I think the modern cleaning up of the track on what I gave you is a little bit better than their Letterman appearance, which is they appeared on Letterman. It was their first television debut, and some hilarity behind the story. So the band's guest spot on Letterman was on October 16th, 1992, and it was their first appearance on network television. But this career breakthrough for the band was somewhat overshadowed by events the night before. According to Louder Sound, the group had a wild night in Asbury Park, New Jersey, which one could definitely have a wild night in Asbury Park, New Jersey. They were hanging outside of a bar when locals decided to challenge the quartet. Never once to shy away from a fight, Screaming Trees started throwing punches at their adversaries, who soon ran off. The bar brawl in Asbury Park definitely left its mark on the Screaming Trees, however, because besides bumps and bruises, Lanigan walked away with a huge black eye, and Martin was even worse for wear, though, as he had dislocated his shoulder in the fight, which left him unable to perform the next day on Letterman. So when they got to the television studio for the Letterman taping, Lanigan had no interest in covering up his battle scar. He refused to let the show's makeup artist put anything on his face to hide the black eye. And according to Lanigan's memoir, Sing Backwards and Weep, the band, minus Martin, still managed to give an impressive performance on the show. After Screaming Trees finished, the show's host, David Letterman, praised the band. He then admitted, "I'll be honest with you, I was kind of scared." And he may have been right to be a bit worried about them, because after the performance, the band then started a food fight backstage in the green room. So they were Lanigan was, I think, in the throes of his heroin addiction, and the Conner brothers were always mercurial characters who fought amongst themselves anyway. So they were a bit scrappy and drug-addled in your classic kind of, rock band, if you will. So yeah, they had a bit of fun. And if you go watch that performance on Letterman, you'll definitely see Lanigan's huge shiner, and you'll see the Letterman house band drummer who learned the song just moments before they went. Like when they showed up, they was like, "Oh yeah, we're down a drummer. He has one arm." So he had to learn the song on the fly. And actually they pulled it off, as Lanigan mentioned in his memoir, pretty well, in spite of anything, of all that. So pretty impressive stuff, and funny as well. So I'm going to jump into the lyrics here. They are, "Did you hear the distant..."
Sorry.
Go ahead.
It's just it's that classic sort of hit the self-destruct button as soon as you're about to make it big.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
and
really
it's always the influential one, the most influential ones that have the most, fucked up, crazy stories and anecdotes from their history, So it just made me laugh. So, "Did you hear the distant cry calling me back to my sins? Like the one you knew before, calling me back once again. I nearly lost you there, and it's taken us somewhere. I nearly lost you there. Let's try to sleep now. Drag me far enough to know I'm blind every mile that you burn. There's a rider that's fallen, and it's clear there's no time to return. I nearly lost you there, and it's taken us somewhere. I nearly lost you there. Well, let's try to sleep now. Did you hear the distant lie calling me back to my sin? Like the ones you knew before, calling me back once again. I nearly lost you there, and it's taken us somewhere. I nearly lost you there. Well, let's try to sleep now. And the outro. I nearly lost you there. I nearly lost you. I nearly lost you there. I nearly lost you there. I nearly lost you there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I nearly lost you there. And the band would go on to say of the song, it's basically about being on acid and how you can lose control of your mind. I stopped using drugs a long time ago, but there's this place you get if you do the right kind or the wrong kind or too much, where you really feel like you know what an insane person feels like, where you see demons and hell and just fucking crazy shit. Basically, I was referring to that point where you've gone too far and then you make it back somehow. So there you go. A lesson learned that perhaps the listener can learn from. So yeah, interesting shit. And again, quintessential rock star material, right?
Yeah. I mean, there is this person that I heard of, definitely not me, but someone that I heard of, and his two mates who bought some mushroom that was all sort of, ground up, and took it all at once, and it was well over 100 mushrooms each, and they had a hell of a time. And all the different hallucinations which they suffered for the rest of that day made an interesting tale. I could only imagine.
Yeah, if I could only meet this guy to hear more about this story, perhaps when a camera wasn't on, that would be really interesting. Because I've heard of gentlemen who've gotten into similar situations and gone down similar paths, and man, the tales.
Apparently, according to someone I spoke to about this, they were upstairs in a well-known public house in their area, and according to one of the combatants of this story, everybody had Mr. Spock ears that he saw, which confused him.
Oh man, I don't know if I'd want to come back from a place like that. Oh man, that's great. That's great. Well, again, man, I'm really glad I got to get you into some of Lanigan's stuff with Screaming Trees.
Yeah.
Familiar with that? He was wildly integral and important to Queens of the Stone Age, right, and all that stuff. Yeah, we don't need to get mired in that stuff. But this guy was, and not to take anything away from the Connor brothers or the rest of the members of the band, but really influential musician. Did a lot of great stuff, whether it was solo, Screaming Trees, Queens of the Stone Age. He deserves his roses, even posthumously, sadly. But yeah, man, great artist. And this is, where he cut his teeth. So I'm glad you gave it a listen, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Cool. Everybody out there in the listening audience, let us know what you think of Screaming Trees, Lanigan and the gang, some crazy tales, all that stuff. Comment field there for a reason. Use it as your canvas. Also, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe if you'd be so inclined. We're trying to grow the channel. And we can't do that without particularly you new viewers. You guys that have been here since day one and so on, really appreciate you. But you new guys, come on in. The water's fine. And give us a sub and give us a follow. We really do appreciate that. All that out of the way. Hopefully, John and I will see all y'all and then some more on the next episode of The Audiophiles. See you later, guys.